Okay, part 3. I just figured, we'll do more. Small talk, the case of Gwyn Fields. Or Gwyn Fields. Okay, I'm Gwyn Fields of the 2nd Brigade of the Royal Guard. Out of the 12 brigades of the Royal Guard, the 2nd Brigade was in charge of escorting and protecting the royal family. The 1st Brigade was devoted exclusively to His Majesty the King, so our charges were Her Majesty the Queen and His Highness the Crown Prince. The 1st and 2nd Brigades, which directly served the royal family, were known among the Royal Guard as the Roses. 2 cycles ago, I became the youngest person in history to be appointed brigade leader, earning me a lot of attention as a rising star in the Royal Guard. To be perfectly honest, I have no interest in fame or adoration. My coworkers like to tease me, saying that my talents were wasted on me or that I was a bore, but I didn't care. I finished my report to the captain of the Royal Guard and headed back to the 2nd Brigade's guard room. In the guard room, guards on their break could eat, chat, nap, or generally spend their free time however they wished. The place was a bit disorganized, but it was an all-male workplace. Kinda came with the territory, unfortunately. Since becoming brigade leader, I'd beaten it into the men to dress smartly and pick up after themselves. Things had improved quite a bit. A frantic-looking guard came running in. "Hey guys, the Angel of Healing is here." Huh? The guardroom fell silent, and then wild cheers broke out. Those eating wolfed down the last few mouthfuls, and those napping leaped to their feet. It was my first time seeing them this enthusiastic about anything. "Alright, I call dibs on guarding His Highness Prince Wilhelm next." The others glared at the guard who made this proclamation with envy and longing. What on earth are they going on about? Angel of Healing? I've never heard of this angel before, and I have no idea what they're referring to, but it seems like it might interfere with their work, so I better give them a stern warning. Don't get so excited that you get sloppy and make mistakes, men. "Oh, brigade leader, I didn't know you were here." "It's okay, sir, we would never mess up in front of our angel." These guys. Murderous intent crept over me, but thankfully I was able to smother it. By the way, what is this Angel of Healing anyway? The royal guards whipped around and stared at me in shock as if they couldn't believe their ears. Do you not know of the Angel of Healing, boss?" "Obviously not. I wouldn't be asking if I already knew," I retorted. The guards' expressions transformed from surprise to grief and pity. They really are a bunch of unmannered ruffians. "She's the youngest daughter of Duke Osp, Lady Nefertima." Huh? Angel of Healing? You're calling her that? When I was saying Angel of Healing, I was thinking it was some noblewoman from another area or something like that. That's what I was thinking of. But no, I wasn't thinking they were talking about Nefertima. Lady Nefertima, I'd seen her at the council meeting to discuss the fire dragon incident, but she seemed like an ordinary little kid to me. Sure, she looked like the daughter of an aristocratic family wearing a high-quality dress, but if she'd been wearing a peasant's dress, I doubted anyone would have supposed her to be of anything other than a peasant. She had an ordinary face, neither exceptionally beautiful nor ugly, and my strongest impression of her was that she didn't leave much of an impression if she hadn't been a member of the highest ranks of the aristocracy. The espionage department would have probably been interested in recruiting her. Her parents and older siblings were not only incredibly good-looking, but also exceptionally talented in academics, fighting, and magic. Rumors had circulated that Nefertima might have been the result of adultery at one time, but the Duchess squashed that theory. Haha. "She's just an ordinary kid," I began to say. "She isn't ordinary," the men shouted in unison. "Hey, don't you know it's rude to interrupt someone when they're speaking?" "Lady Nefertima is an incredibly kind person. She speaks to us as if we're friends despite the difference in status. And she's incredibly knowledgeable. She taught me tons of things about plants and animals, medicinal herbs, and healing techniques." Huh? You're still talking about the 3-year-old, correct? "She helped me when a disagreeable aristocrat was harassing me. Lady Nefertima said that the aristocracy was entrusted with the power and authority of their status to protect the weak. I'm sure Lady Nefertima has also assisted many other people and healed them with her words and actions. Lady Nefertima has a pure soul. Wouldn't anyone be happy to hear her call them cool and amazing with that carefree smile?" Hold on, we're talking about a 3-year-old here, aren't we? Thank you. I'm like, yes, she has that ability over animals and stuff, but Jesus Christ. They're acting like she has that same ability over humans. Unless they're implying that humans have some kind of other blood in them besides, just humans. Like elves and stuff. Yeah, what does a 3-year-old know about status and authority anyway? Don't you guys remember how she ran off to play with His Highness Prince Wilhelm's holy beast in the middle of the council meeting? You'll understand Lady Nefertima's greatness if you spoke with her, right guys? That last bit had been directed at the other guards and all agreed. Is that so? In that case, I look forward to meeting her, I said. A little girl who has the men of this worked up over her. I must admit I am curious to meet her. I am not too, because I'm like, what the fuck? This changed quick. Fortunately, I immediately got the chance to do so. I was informed that His Highness Prince Wilhart would like to speak with me, so left my duties to the assistant brigade leader. 2 of my subordinates were standing guard outside the door of His Highness's private quarters. Something seemed different about them than usual, of course. Their expressions were determined and focused, and they were standing at attention. They appeared to be working at least 20% more diligently than usual. If this becomes the new norm, it'll make my job a lot easier. Yeah, if this is what they're gonna do, have her come by a lot. I saluted the 2 guards and knocked on the door. Brigade leader of the 2nd Brigade of the Royal Guard, Gwyn Fields, answering His Highness's summons. The door opened and the chief maid assigned to His Highness courtesied respectfully. We've been waiting for you, Miss Fields. Or Mr. Fields. Wait, Mr. Fields? Oh! I thought it was a woman! It said Mr. Fields. I thought that was a woman. Right? I could have swore it said there was a woman. Because it said it was an all men, but that was to be just, whatever. Please come in. I followed the chief maid into the room. The simplicity of the decor struck me as always, even though it wasn't my first time visiting His Highness's private quarters. His Highness wasn't fond of excessive adornments or extravagant items. As such, nothing unnecessary was in his rooms, only practical and high-quality furnishings. The laugh of a young voice echoed across the room, seeming out of place in His Highness's private quarters. It would appear that the legendary Lady Nefertima had come to play. A chief maid announced my arrival, and I paid homage before His Highness. Thank you for coming. You may rise. Once I received His Highness's permission, I rose to my feet. Nima, this is Gwyn Fields, the brigade leader of the 2nd Brigade of the Royal Guard. Gwyn, this is Duke Osva's daughter, Nefertima. After His Highness introduced us, I gave the formal salute of the Royal Guard and repeated my introduction. It's a pleasure to meet you, my lady. I'm Gwyn Fields. The young girl who had been reading a massive book got down from her chair and greeted me politely. I'm Daewand Osva's youngest daughter, Nefertima. I saw you in the throne room before. Also, it's not our first time meeting. Oh, she noticed me on the day of the council meeting. Nima, if you ever run into trouble at the palace, you can ask Gwyn for help. Okay, I'm counting on you, Miss... I still can't get over the stupid lisp. I'm trying not to do it very much because I'm worried if I do too much, I'm going to start doing it naturally. And I don't want that. Mr. Gwyn? Lady Nefertima said with an unabashedly full-faced smile. It would be my pleasure to assist you in any way I can, my lady. I couldn't deny feeling that His Highness had saddled me with a troublesome task, but I couldn't very well act that way in front of a child, so I returned her smile. Gwyn, please take Nima to the dragon stables. Ooh, dragon stables. Huh? He's ordering me to babysit? And to take this kid to the place where that guy I can't stand works? As the name suggests, the primary directive of the Royal Guard was to guard the royal palace. Policing the royal city, subjugating monsters, and going to war were the works of the royal knighthood. For that reason, their numbers were great, totaling around 100,000 members, including those stationed at the fortresses along the country's borders. The royal knighthood was also divided into 12 divisions, known as legions, but only about a third of their members were stationed in the royal city. The others were in the 4 territories in each of the cardinal directions. The commander of one of those legions, the 12th Legion, also known as the Dragon Knights, and I got along like cats and dogs. Just thinking about him makes me sick. But if it was His Royal Highness's order, I needed to swallow my personal feelings and obey. Of course, Your Highness, but isn't that dangerous? Lindblooms and Lindrakes were classified as aggressive species of dragons. The Dragon Knights first had to win a dragon's favor before they could ride on its back. Nima will be fine. If there's any danger, I'm sure the fire dragon will take care of it. If His Highness insisted, there was nothing I could do. To be safe, I would bring 2 other guards along as escorts. Between the 3 of us, we could probably handle anything that might occur. In the end, I still had no idea why the guys idolized this child so much. Oh, boy. We meet at last. I was forbidden from playing at the royal palace until things calmed down, so for the entire month following the audience in the throne room, I lay low at home. During that time, my brother taught me about the medicinal herbs and other plants he was growing, and my sister taught me many things about magic. Okay, that's where she learned it from. Okay. I also challenged myself to read through as many books as our private library as possible. Will also visited a few times that month. Aren't you supposed to be in school? What about your official duties? Why do you have so much free time on your hands? Good question. But when I asked my mother about it, she explained that Will was practicing sword fighting with my brother. At these times, I was bored, so I entertained myself by playing with Lars and the Royal Guard who came along as Will's security. Of course, the Royal Guards obtained Will's permission before playing with me. Then at long last, Will said he would let me meet the dragons he told me about, so I eagerly visited him at the Royal Palace. First, we met up at Will's room so I could learn a bit about the Lindblum and Lindrake dragons I would meet today. They were highly intelligent and could understand the human language, but couldn't speak. Allegedly, they hated having their throats, wings, and tails touched. Sometimes they even attacked if anyone other than their partner, whom they were very fond of, tried to touch them. Apparently, it really rubs them the wrong way. The dragons were divided into 3 categories. The fire dragon, Sol, was a primordial dragon. In terms of my world, I guess we would call him an ancient dragon. Primordial dragons were holy beasts that could control the 4 elements and had a lifespan of thousands of years. They could speak the human language, and with their long memories, they were like living records of history. Along with elemental spirits, the primordial dragons were revered as beings nearly on par with God. Lindblums were a smaller species of dragon with wings and were categorized as winged dragons. Their bodies were shaped like lizards, but their snouts protruded like crocodiles. The well-known wyvern was another type of winged dragon. Lindrakes were a subspecies of Lindblum that didn't have wings. Dragons that walked the earth were earth dragons. Other types of earth dragons included serpentine dragons and giant worms that burrowed underground. A dragon knight needed the approval of the dragons before they could be considered a full knight. Of course, their skills surpassed those of a regular knight, but the most important criteria for being a dragon knight was that the dragons were willing to allow the knight to ride on their backs. For this reason, the dragon knights' training was grueling. They worked their tails off to care for the dragons. Sometimes knights tried a little too hard and it backfired on them. Will regaled me with amusing stories of these dragon knights and the ridiculous things they did while trying to win the dragon's favor when a man entered the room. Based on his uniform, he seemed to be someone important in the Royal Guard. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd seen this silver-haired, handsome young man somewhere before. I pretended to be absorbed in a book while covertly glancing at the handsome young man. The strands of his hair were long, reaching to his waist. His hair was braided to keep it out of the way, but the hairstyle didn't look the least bit feminine on him, which was surprising because he had a more slender build than many of the Royal Guards. His eyes were probably to thank for that. The intensity of his blue eyes were as cold as ice. Anyone would get the shivers if those eyes glared at them. Huh? Come to think of it, I vaguely remember being the target of a stare that felt like an ice beam piercing straight through me. When was that? Oh, it was in the throne room. It had come from somewhere behind the Queen. When the Queen hugged me, someone glared at me fiercely. I hadn't been impressed, so I hadn't shrunk in fear. Will introduced me to the man, so I got down from my chair and responded as a proper aristocratic young lady. It's a pleasure to meet you, my lady. I'm Gwen Fields. Based on his introduction, he gave me the impression he was a slightly eccentric ice beauty dedicated to his job. He seems like he could be a pain to deal with. I'll do my best to avoid him, but Will's right here right now, so I need to act mature and friendly. I can do it. My body might be that of a child, but my mind is that of an adult. But it's been one annoying thing after another ever since I came to this world. Yeesh. Will, is there something wrong with your hiring process? Gwen is ignoring me to bicker like a child with some dude. When am I going to meet these adorable little dragons? Although the subordinate he brought along also seemed exasperated with him. Guess I should wait and see what happens, but I'm bored out of my freaking mind. Just when I was thinking anybody pay attention to me, someone came. A bird that happened to be flying past stopped and landed on my head. The bird pecked at my hair, hopped down on my head, and seemed to ask, "You got any food?" "Oh, no, sorry, I don't have anything with me right now that I can give you." I guiltily stroked the bird's soft feathers. Just then a pot appeared and held out an acorn as if saying, "Here, you can have this." Aww. Oh, he's so cute. And kind, too. The pot had droopy ears like a Scottish fold breed of cat and a fluffy tail, and I couldn't get enough of this adorable way he tilted his head coquettishly as he looked up at me. "Thanks, but no thanks. This acorn is too big for the bird to eat, so you keep it. Instead, please let me touch those precious little ears of yours." With the tip of my finger, I traced the base of the pod's ear, then gently pinched his earlobe between my thumb and forefinger. His ears are thicker than I expected. The pod was trembling. Perhaps it was ticklish? Oh no, somebody stop me. I don't know if I can control myself. I want to give him a big hug like with Lars and Sol. If no one were around, I'd probably be rolling around on the ground from the agony of holding back from acting on this impulse. But there are dragons nearby. I could hug them as tight as I want without hurting them. If only I could meet with them already. Are they still going at it? Good grief, he really is a pain in the butt. Can I ditch him and go in by myself? It's fine, right? I might be the child here, but I'm acting like the least childish one. I'm pretty sure the person Gwen is arguing with is the leader of the Dragon Knights, so I can ask him directly, can't I? Besides, that jerk Gwen is saying he stinks like animals, but reptiles don't usually smell much. Maybe faintly of hay and grass, if anything. He really is an idiot, isn't he? And so I smashed my way into the conversation. Excuse me, can I go see the dragons now? I tugged on the other man's pants to get his attention. Once he noticed me, the Legion commander crouched down so we were at eye level. This is already enough to give me a favorable impression of him. This might not have been unusual in everyday life, but I could count on one hand the number of people connected to the royal palace who would do that for me. The more attached to status and position a person was, the more likely they would find it disgraceful to kneel before a child. Gwen certainly hadn't done it. We're making eye contact now, so I better greet him properly. It was technically proper manners for a person of lower social status to introduce themselves first, but since I was making a request of him, I figured I should go first this time. I'm Dalen Os's youngish daughter, Nefertima. I smiled and curtsied, and the Legion commander patted my head affectionately. So clever for such a young child. My name is Dan Yates. I'm the leader of the Dragon Knights. You could just call me Dan. Okay, Mr. Dan. I like his frank and no-frills attitude. Despite being an important person, he's friendly and not at all arrogant. Okay, so I can see why Gwen doesn't get along with him. I don't mind as long as you just look, but don't try to touch the dragons, okay? If you try to hug one, you'll get eaten as a snack. Between soul's power and the gift God gave me, something tells me I'll be fine, but... Okay, I promise. I held Dan's hand like we were already good friends, and we finally headed into the dragon stables. Gwen grumbled behind me, but I didn't pay him any mind. Yeah, just shut up, Gwen. If you hate Dan all that much, you don't have to come in with us. You don't have to come in if you don't want to, Gwen, I suggested, but the man accompanying him enthusiastically objected. Fine, but don't get in my way. Based on its name, I've been picturing dragon stables as a little barn like they use for horses or cows, but this was an entire ranch. Even more incredibly, there were different areas with differing environments. There was a desert, a wild area of rolling fields, bordering a dense forest, and allegedly even a lake was deep in the forest. Wow! Magic was used to create the different environments of the ranch, so while air from deep within the earth heated the desert, the forest was cool. The lindblooms and linddrakes roamed freely here. I asked, won't the dragons run away? And was told that the dragons had been bound using their true names so they couldn't escape. I could tell from his tone that Dan loved the dragons and treated them very well. They kept the area where the dragons slept clean and provided them with fresh food. Dan told me they even changed the habitats periodically so that dragons wouldn't get bored of the scenery. The dragons were laying around relaxing and didn't look the least bit aggressive. They're so cute! The lindblooms looked as if their front legs might have evolved into wings because they only had rear legs. The way they walked on two legs with their wings tucked up like a bird was adorable. The lindrakes were four-legged and walked with a creeping gait. I couldn't get enough of the way their tails switched back and forth as they walked. She's so cute! Dan beamed from ear to ear as if I just complimented his own children. But now I want to pet them even more than ever. What should I do? If I ask Dan, he'll probably say no. Oh, I've got it. I won't touch them. I'll get them to touch me. Come here, little dragons, I mentally called with all my might, and a whole bunch of dragons reacted. What is it? You called? Let's play! Yay! Oh, they want attention. They want attention from you. I was surprised to hear the dragons' voices inside my head. Well, they can't speak human, but they can speak to you telepathically, I guess. What's going on? I started to freak out when Soul's voice popped into my head. As long as you possess the dragon core, or dragon orb, you will be able to communicate with all dragons. Oh, so that's it. Hey, that's pretty nifty. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. The dragon orb is a super rare legendary item after all. Okay, thank you. Dan seemed wary of the swarm of dragons approaching us. Gwen and his men drew their swords and watched the dragons carefully. You don't have to be so nervous. Well, I can understand it considering they're dragons. You don't want them to accidentally hurt you, you know. So that's why they're a little on edge. The dragons were on the other side of a tall fence, and they seemed to behave themselves out of respect for Dan. They'd hear a compelling request to come here, and really wanted to comply, but the fence was so tall they couldn't cross it. Then a lindbloom flew over the fence and landed directly in front of me. Dan stepped in front of me, trying to protect me, but the lindbloom hissed and stopped approaching. For my part, I smiled broadly at the lindbloom. He's just so cute. What's your name, I asked. My name is Giesel, human child. The voice I heard in my head was that of a human male, but with my ears I heard the rumble of the Lindblum growling. My name's Nima. You exude the aura of the fire dragon. Wow, they can sense it? I wonder if they know him. Sol gave me his dragon orb. And yet you are not bonded with him. Well, no matter. Our flock welcomes you, Dragon's Maiden. Dragon's Maiden. Somehow I'd leveled up from human child to Dragon's Maiden in moments, but what did that mean? I don't know. Well, you could probably ask your mom and dad that later. Well, putting aside troublesome things, I don't understand they'll play with me now, right? In that case, there's one thing I have to do. Giselle, let me pet you? I suppose that's fine. He seems bashful. It's super duper adorable. Alright, then I won't hold back. Well, I never once in my life held back when petting any creature, but yeah, I won't start now either. His protruding snout was rough and dimpled. Crocodiles are like this too, right? Oh, when he blinks, his eyelids close up from the bottom. That's the same as a lizard, isn't it? And his stomach is a little bit soft. Yeah, he's a lot like a lizard after all. When I stopped stroking, Gazelle demanded more pets. What, are you a tsundere or something? You aren't you? Oh, I love this. Then, when, without thinking much about it, I impulsively hugged Gazelle, growls a complaint sounded from the other side of the fence. No fair! Pet me too! Don't hug her all to yourself, Gazelle! Giesel, whatever. I am so glad I got this gift from God. This is heaven. Don't worry, I'll hug each and every one of you. Just wait. Still clinging to Giesel, I asked Dan, is it okay if I go play with them? Yeah, I can understand it. The cars all seem kind of out of it, aren't they? Dan, your mouth is hanging open. A bug is going to fly in if you don't close it. Awesome! What game should we play together? Let's go to the lake. The dragons on the other side of the fence spoke over one another in their excitement. I climbed up on Giesel's back and we flew off into the sky. The feeling of my feet being unable to touch the ground, the wind on my face, and being able to see forever in all directions was so impactful that I couldn't accurately put it into words. I was incredibly jealous of all winged creatures for being able to indulge in this sense of freedom to their heart's content. Lars still wouldn't fly with me, claiming it was too dangerous at my age. Well, the dragons don't care. I can't believe I've been missing out on all this time. I was lying down, clutching the dragon's neck so I wouldn't get in the way of him flapping his wings. Is this what hang gliding feels like? Oh, I should probably mention I got Giesel's permission before touching his neck. The other dragons all followed after Giesel and me. The Lindrakes ran across the ground below us at an incredible speed. I don't believe how much dust they're kicking up in their wake. You don't have to rush. We have plenty of time. Giesel brought me to a steep hill covered in white flower, or small hill covered in white flowers. They told me these flowers were called senna and were like catnip to dragons. According to them, the petals were sweet and the leaves were refreshing, almost minty. I tried them, but to me, they just tasted like leaves. Senna lived for many years and were believed to promote a long life. I picked some and made a bouquets to bring home as presents for Mama and Karna, and when I later gave them the flowers, they told me you can brew senna into a medicinal tea. Nice! I made flower crowns for many dragons, but they all got eaten. Just heartless, I tell you. And I shouted, "Stop that! Bad!" The dragons ran off, so I chased after them. At some point, it morphed into a game of tag. Wait for me! Here she comes! Run away! Oh, the others are probably just watching like, what the fuck is going on? We don't understand! Of course, I had no hope of catching them with my short little legs. They went easy on me, but even so, the total ease of which they evaded me was super annoying. I got tired from running around, so we moved to the lake in the woods. Some dragons lounged or even napped on the shore, and others played in the shallow water. I was surprised to see the Lindrake swimming. I knew the Lindblooms couldn't swim because of their wings, but seeing the Lindrake swim made them seem even more like crocodiles. Except for the fact that they look more like logs in the water than crocodiles. Oh, that's right. Maybe one of them will let me ride on their back. I wouldn't do that. With that thought in mind, I asked a female Lindrake named Iria, whom I became friendly with, to give me a ride. Fine with me, but just don't blame me if you fall off. No, don't drop me! Guys, please save me if Iria drops me, I announced, preparing a backup plan. Okay, we'll save you. They're so kind. I'm counting on you guys to be my life buoy. I climbed onto Aria's back, and together we explored the lake. The lake was deepest in the center and filled with clean water that fed up from a natural spring. The water level never changed, so I guess the water must be connected underground to the river running through the grassy plain. I made a mental note to check it out next time. I used my legs to splash water on the dragons swimming past us. They doused me with water in return. Hold on a minute, you guys. That's way more water than I splashed on you. Aria got soaked too, so I convinced her to join me in getting revenge. knew it. Our playful splashing had snowballed into an all-out Lindblooms versus Lindrakes water fight. A water fight was all well and good, but in a battle situation, Lindblooms have an overwhelming advantage. Using your wings is cheating. The Lindblooms couldn't swim, so they were confined to the shallows, but in the water they threw with their powerful wings was a mighty weapon. Undaunted, the Lindrakes gave it their best. I wasn't sure how they did it, but the Lindrakes jumped out of the water like dolphins, soaking their opponents with the spray created when they landed in a full-on belly flop. Incredible power, but now I'm soaked. My hair and clothes are soaking wet. I heard about what to do when Gizo came to the rescue. You can use the fire dragon's power. Oh, that's right. So is a fire dragon. I can evaporate the water to dry myself off. I wasted no time calling out to Soul telepathically. To communicate telepathically, all you needed to do was picture the other person and form the words in your mind. Once they noticed you calling out to them, the image in your mind would become clearer. It was as if a string pulled taut inside your mind, connecting you both together. So, I want you to dry off my clothes. I wasn't using my voice, so when speaking telepathically, I could speak normally. When speaking out loud, I still butchered S's and R's most of the time. Indeed, if you don't clean yourself up, your mother will scold you. Mama's scoldings were the worst, so I wanted to avoid them at all costs. I couldn't bear the emotional sucker punch. Let's keep it a secret from Mama, you naughty child. Chuckling Soul sent me his power. The bunny backpack on my back glowed faintly, and warmth enveloped my entire body. My chilled body instantly warmed to the tips of my toes, and my hair and clothes dried completely. Incredible! Soul and the Dragon Orb are like the ultimate cheat code. Thanks! Time flew by in the blink of an eye while I played with the dragons. Just as the sun started to set, Lars came to retrieve me. Lars! It's time to go home already. Can't I play just a little longer? While I was stalling to avoid going home, the dragons jumped on board and protested. We want to play more. It's still light out. We can play for a little while longer. I want to play with Nima. In response, Lars suddenly let out a great roar. His echoing roar silenced the needling dragons. Scary. I thought my heart was going to stop. I'm sorry. I'll be a good girl and go home now. Even so, this was a sight of Lars I'd never seen before. Yeah. He's like, no, you're not listening. You go home. Until this point, he had always seemed like a kind, dependable older brother, but the way he fiercely scolded the dragons on my behalf was also very older brother-like in a different sense. I'm going to do my best not to make Lars angry. If he growls at me like that, I might lose a few years off my lifespan. Uh-oh, that's not good. Okay, small talk. The case of Dan Yates. I've loved dragons ever since I was little. The Dragon Knights appeared in the Royal Parade held every year for the anniversary of the founding of our kingdom. It was surreal to see the Dragon Knights right atop one of the Lindrake Earth Dragons and control it as if moving their own arms and legs or flying in formation through the sky on the back of a Lindbloom winged dragon. I was enchanted. Every time I saw them, my determination to become a Dragon Knight only increased. Fortunately, my family were successful merchants, and I was able to attend the Royal Academy. The Academy had a scholarship system, but I wasn't smart enough to qualify, so I applied as a self-sponsored student. Self-sponsored students could be from any social class, but because they didn't get any financial assistance, their parents would need to be able to pay the tuition fees. Dragon Knights were selected from among the most distinguished members of the Royal Knighthood, so there was no Dragon Knight class at the Academy. I joined the Beast Knight class, trained in swordsmanship and long weapons, and learned about the different types of animals and how to care for them. I figured that although the animals that Beast Knights worked with were probably completely different from dragons, it wouldn't hurt to have that base knowledge. After graduating from the Royal Academy, I spent some time in the Beast Knights Legions, one of the special divisions of the Royal Knighthood, and now I was the commander of the Dragon Knights Legion. One day, I received the news that a fire dragon had appeared at my alma mater, the Royal Academy. Why wouldn't they call for us at a time like this? Standing around watching from the Royal Palace had been painful as the dragon flew off toward the mountain range to the north. Afterward, a council meeting was held about the incident, and a rumor spread that a young girl had become the dragon's master. To be perfectly honest, I'm insanely jealous. I'd been swamped with work day in and day out, and just when the uproar surrounding the fire dragon incident started to die down among the men in my legion, we received an unexpected visitor. It was the brigade leader of the 2nd Brigade of the Royal Guard, Gwyn Fields. We'd been in the same year at the Royal Academy, but I couldn't stand him because he always complained. According to him, I didn't take enough care of my appearance, was not sufficiently aware of my position as a knight, and spent too much time playing with dragons and not enough time practicing sword fighting. Yeah, as you can probably imagine, I wasn't interested in his opinion. I reluctantly headed out to meet Gwyn, and as expected, he immediately said into me, "As usual, your men are sloppily dressed. This is the Royal Palace. You never know when you might encounter a noble personage. Your lack of propriety makes us all look bad. Of course we clean up when we go into the palace," I said, "but unlike you guys, my legion rarely leaves the dragon stables." During times of peace, the Dragon Knight Legion's work solely consisted of patrolling, caring for the dragons, training, and being on call. While looking out for the dragons, we wore standard issue coveralls for manual labor. These clothes were easy to move in, and we didn't need to worry about getting them dirty. They were similar to the work clothes worn by the lower classes, only a bit higher quality. You may call it caring for the dragons, but in reality, aren't you just playing around? It is part of our job to play with them, I stressed. If the dragons don't like us, they won't let us ride on their backs. Even you should be aware of that much. Nothing was more important to us than being accepted by the dragons. We would do anything to get them to accept us. Anyone who didn't have that mindset wouldn't make it in this legion. Speaking of doing your jobs, can't you keep this place cleaner? He continued to nitpick. The beast stables aren't any better, but this place reeks of animals. You didn't have to come if you hated here that much. The two royal guards standing beside Gwen also seemed troubled. Well, I was just changing the hay in the dragon sleeping area, so I probably smell really sweaty. Excuse me, can I go see the dragons now? I felt a tug on my pants and heard a voice coming from near my feet. A young girl was wearing a finely tailored pink dress that I could tell with a single glance was very high quality and probably expensive. Maybe it would be more accurate to call her a toddler? She wore a red stuffed rabbit on her back, and the way she was looking up at me beseechingly was precious. I squatted down so we were at eye level. A smile spread across her face at this, and she introduced herself with shaky pronunciation. I'm Dalen Ost's youngest daughter, Nefertima. This surprised me. The patriarch of the Ost family was a duke, which also served as prime minister generation after generation. Even at her young age, she should know it was customary for the person of lower social status to introduce themselves first. Is she intentionally flattering me because I'm the Legion commander and she wants to tour the dragon stables? I'm probably overthinking it. She must have just forgotten. Even so, the lisping way little kids spoke and their innocent smiles were unconditionally adorable. I couldn't help myself. Before I knew it, I was affectionately patting her small head. Lady Nefertima says she wants to meet the dragons, but I wonder if she'll cry when she sees them. To our Legion, the dragons were cool and adorable, but I imagine a little girl would probably see them as frightening creatures. In any case, I got her to promise not to touch the dragons, then agreed to show her around the dragon stables. Lady Nefertima took my hand and walked briskly, urging me to hurry. Following behind us, Gwen continued to complain. Letting a child near those vicious dragons. Hey, the dragons here would never attack anyone unprovoked. He should just leave if he hated this place so much, but apparently His Highness the Crown Prince had ordered Gwen to escort Lady Nefertima. I suppose he can't abandon his charge simply because he hates dragons. You don't have to come in if you don't want to, Gwen, Lady Nefertima said, perhaps pitying Gwen after all his grumbling. No, we will accompany you as long as you are in the royal palace, Lady Nefertima. Don't pay the brigade leader any mind. Gwen's subordinates blanched, but recovered quickly. Oh, I like their spirit. Gwen's a jerk, but he's lucky to have such dedicated men working for him. Although this is called the dragon's stables, magic had been used to make it so the dragons could roam freely. In one corner of the grounds were 3 buildings for the dragons to sleep in, and a short distance away was a building that contained the barracks where the dragon knights and apprentices lived, a large cafeteria, and a meeting room. This building also had rooms for the live-in cook and maid, and the commander and assistant commander's private rooms were in the first floor as a security measure. The 3 buildings where the dragons slept were called the Hay Nest, the Sand Nest, and the Stone Nest. At some point, the knights had arranged them like this to suit the dragons' different preferences, and the arrangements had stuck. I showed Lady Nefertima the inside of the nest and explained the environments the dragons lived in. I'd figured she wouldn't be interested in such things, but she listened attentively. She even revealed her tomboy side by diving into the freshly changed hay in the hay nest. Gwen was scowling as usual. Do you hate not only animals but kids too? No, he seems to be the type to view everything and everyone he hasn't personally approved of like dirt on his boots. Yeah, I'm kind of not getting a good vibe from Gwen now. Unless something changes. We were walking along a tall fence that stretched on seemingly forever from the nest when the figures of several dragons lying around here and there came into view. Lady Nefertima's eyes sparkled when she caught sight of the dragons and called them cute. Yeah, wild dragons are fierce and regal, but the ones here also have an element of cuteness to them. That didn't mean their fighting instincts weren't suppressed, but having a safe place to lay their heads at night somehow made a difference. All of a sudden, the dragons began acting strangely. They became restless and started shrieking frequently. The dragons close enough to notice us dashed toward us with great urgency, and the others followed close on their tails, rushing to converge in a large group. Lady Nefertima seemed surprised by the dragon's behavior. Gwen and his men also noticed something was up because they drew their swords and took up fighting positions. A fence was between us, but even so, the sight of so many dragons shrieking and shoving one another in an attempt to get closer to us was unnerving, to say the least. I chided myself for letting my own fearful instincts get the better of me despite my position as Knight Legion Commander, and was about to order the dragons to stand down when a lindblom flew over the fence. I stepped in front of Lady Nefertima before I had the chance to think. As if anticipating my actions, the dragon roared. It was a challenge against a weaker creature. I knew this intellectually, but my instincts refused to permit my body to move. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Gwyn and his men also rendered motionless. What should I do? How can I hold out until my men notice something's up and run over here? My mind ran a mile a minute. What's your name? For a moment, I had no idea what was happening. I didn't expect Lady Nefertima, of all people, to be able to move in a situation like this. If you're able to move, run away! Oblivious to my thoughts, she approached the Lindblum. The dragon's growl cut through the air, and the image of Lady Nefertima being torn to shreds flashed across my mind. My name is Nima, but the sound that greeted my ears was neither a scream nor the rending of flesh, but instead a carefree young voice. The Lindblum growled again in response. Sol gave me his dragon orb. Is she having a conversation with him? What am I thinking? That's not possible. There were cases in the legendary heroic tales passed down through the ages where a person possessing a dragon's orb could communicate with dragons, but only primordial dragons could create dragon orbs, and they were so rare that most people considered them more legendary magical items. Wait, primordial dragons? Could it be that Lady Nefertima is the one who bonded with the fire dragon? Giesel, let me pet you. That left no room for doubt. She had no way of knowing, but we'd taken to calling the leader of the dragons who lived at the dragon stables Giesel. Furthermore, Giesel's growl changed from a threatening noise to something that sounded more like an attempt at conveying his thoughts. Frankly, I couldn't believe my eyes. The prideful leader of the dragons and the only dragon at the stables who never allowed anyone to ride him was obediently allowing Lady Nefertima to pet him like a dog. Is it okay if I go play with them? Lady Nefertima clung to Giesel in exceptionally high spirits. The sight of Giesel letting her have her way with him was so shocking that I lost the ability to think. I must have made some attempt at answering, but due in part to the effects of the dragon's earlier roar of challenge, the only thing that came out of my mouth was an unintelligible gibberish. Lady Nefertima took this as an affirmative response because, with Giesel's assistance, she climbed onto his back and they flew off into the sky. I wish I'd fainted in fright from the dragon's roar. If I had, I wouldn't have to feel this uncomfortable jealousy toward that sweet child. I wonder if she'd still smile at me once she returns. He's jealous, because he never got to ride that dragon. And I'm sure he wanted to. So badly. Part 1. Today I'll be playing at the Beast Stables, where the animals who work with the Beast Knights Legion, one of the special divisions of the Royal Knighthood, lived. A dragon knight who I became friendly with had told me lots of rare animals were also in the Beast Stables. I'd begged Papa to take me, but somehow this request had been forwarded to Will. Will tried to assign Gwen to accompany me again, but I refused and requested that Dan escort me instead. Of course, I was just being considerate. Gwen didn't seem terribly fond of animals after all. Come to think of it, when I refused to go with Gwen, his subordinates collapsed on the ground. What was up with that? Because they wanted to go! They wanted to go! They wanted to be around you, girl. Like, you're their angel of healing. Was it that much of a shock to them that Gwen might not be a perfect human being? No, they want to be withdrawn to you, girl. But sometimes people have weaknesses they just can't overcome, right? Thinking of it that way, I can somehow somewhat sympathize with that ice beauty. Dan held my hand and led me to the opposite direction from the dragon stables. Animals are afraid of dragons, so we put as much distance between them as possible. That made sense. After all, dragons are at the top of the food chain. That's enough to make anyone nervous. Anyway, we've been walking beside a tall wall for a long time now, but where on earth will we get there? Are we almost there? I asked. Yeah, it's on the other side of this wall. The entrance is... Look, there it is. Say, what? The wall is at least 15 feet tall. Are you sure this isn't a prison? And we're walking along this wall for a really long time. Just how big is the real palace to have a place like this inside it? Good question. How big is it? Once we passed through the gate, the commander of the Beast Knights Legion came out to meet us. The Legion commander also crouched down so he was at eye level with me and immediately introduced himself. It's a pleasure to meet you, my lady. I'm Legion Commander of the Royal Knighthood Special Division Beast Knights Legion, Leston Ogma. Please call me Les. Leston seemed like an easygoing person. His smile never faltered, and he escorted me chivalrously like a knight from a picture book or novel. He wasn't exceptionally handsome, which set me at ease. His dark brown hair was cut short in a style that looked like it would keep him cool in the summer, and his eyes were a bit darker than the color of his hair, reminding me nostalgically of a Japanese person's eyes. I think he receives the best marks out of all the knights I've met so far. Dan's really great too. He's very attentive, but he seems a little down lately. I often see him spacing out while watching the dragons. Dan's problem might be that he loves the dragons too much. No, I think it's because you got to ride the one dragon that nobody else got to ride. Including him. And he's jealous. He's jealous of you because you got that honor. Once he found out that I could communicate with the dragons, he asked me to interpret for him and set out to interview every single one of them. He asked about their favorite and least favorite foods, followed by their exact ages and physical conditions and the names of their favorite knights. It had taken me a whopping 15 visits to the dragon stables to get through all the interviews. During this time, Dan asked me a lot of questions, and I realized that an untrue rumor had been circulating about me. People believed that I had officially bonded with the fire dragon. The cause of this misunderstanding was the fact that I received the dragon orb. According to Dan, giant primordial dragons created dragon orbs to connect with their master. But I guess you decided it was alright to give yours to any old human you fancied, bond or no bond, eh, Soul? Of course I set Dan straight right away. And Soul told me that if I feel I need him once I'm grown, he will bond with me. It's a little hard to know if he was referring to me being in a position where I needed his power, or if it's enough to just want to be with him. During this conversation, I finally got the chance to ask what the Holy Beast's blessing is. Unfortunately, the only answer I received was no clue. You'd have to ask Will on that one. So Dan doesn't know either, huh? My family won't tell me, and Soul only says I'll understand once we bonded. Nobody will give me a straight answer. Enough about human matters already. Let's get on to the main event, shall we? Leston led us to a setting similar to the dragon stables. However, instead of a ranch, it was a safari park. It's flat land for as far as the eye can see. All the terrain I could see was grassland, but I got the impression that different areas were controlled by magic. The first animals we encountered were a herd of horses. The war horses were a little beefier than the horses in my world, with long and heavily muscled legs. They were probably incredibly strong, too. The color variations, black horses, chestnut horses, gray and white roan horses, and white horses were no different than in my world. Lady Nefertima, since this is a rare chance, would you like to ride on one of these horses while we look around the beast stables? Leston proposed an excellent plan. Yay! The only horseback riding experience I've ever had was the one time I got to ride a pony when I was a kid in my past life, so I was overjoyed. Yeah, I want to ride the horsey! I raised my hands excitedly, and Leston stuck 2 fingers in his mouth to whistle to the horses. Wow, using your fingers to whistle produces a much louder noise than just whistling through your lips. I don't know how that's possible, whatever. A horse responded to the whistle and galloped over to us. He was the largest horse out of the herd of exceptionally beefy horses. This is the leader of the herd. His name is Uwaz. Uh-huh, I thought he had a kind of haughty aura, so he's the boss of the herd, huh? The horse came when called, but he was eyeing me suspiciously as if thinking, who is this pipsqueak? I'm Nima, nice to meet you. Impressive snorting power. Was that snort his way of laughing at me? I get the feeling he's looking down his nose at me. So that's how you want to be, huh? I smiled charmingly at Uwaz. The horse stared straight back at me. It would probably be more accurate to say he glared at me, but I didn't let it bother me. I'd always heard horses were very obedient once they'd accepted a person as their friend. But Uwaz seemed wary of me. Looks like this is going to be a battle of wills. Uwaz, let's play. My smile never faltered as I called his name Uwaz over and over. Uwaz turned from me to look at Leston. He seemed to be saying, can you do something about this pipsqueak? But Leston merely watched things unfold between the horse and me with an amused expression. Looks like Uwaz didn't want to play with me. Leston, let's keep going. I'm not even going to try and neigh. That'd be kind of weird. Uwaz scratched the ground with his front legs in protest. Thought so. You finally got to see your master, so of course you didn't want him to leave so soon. If you accept me as a friend, Leston will stay too, you know. Do you want to play? I asked again, and Uwaz looked back and forth between Leston and the herd behind him uneasily. As the boss, is he conflicted about abandoning the herd to spend time with his master? I'm sorry, Lady Nefertima. Uwaz can be a little selfish. Uwaz deflated as soon as Leston said that. Oh, he looked so depressed I could practically hear the boom as that blow hit him. He's so adorable. Could this possibly be his true personality peeking through? I bet he's putting on an act and pretending to be haughty because he's conscious of his role as herd boss. Personally, I prefer him much better this way. He's just so cute. In any case, I'd better clear up this misunderstanding. That's not true, Leston. Uwaz isn't selfish. He just doesn't want to be let us twain to near the herd since he's the boss. Right, Uwaz? In response to my question, Uwaz pushed his muzzle toward me. I think he's saying, wow, you understand pretty well for such a little pipsqueak, but thanks. He's so damn cute! I stroked the horse's muzzle and petted the side of his neck. In any case, it looks like I've won Uwaz over. Huh? Leston all but shouted, finally registering the meaning of my words. Sorry for my terrible pronunciation. You mean that Uwaz is just acting selfishly to keep people away from his herd? That's right. What, don't you believe me? Well, I suppose that toward Leston, Uwaz always acts spoiled, right? I'm not sure horses do things like that. Uwaz is really smart, I insisted. Dan was also wearing a decidedly doubtful expression. Don't you know that plenty of animals play dead to fool predators into leaving them alone? And that especially clingy dogs will try just about anything to get their owner's attention? Yeah, definitely. I did my best to explain, and in the end, both seemed at least somewhat convinced. Leston apologized to Uwaz for not noticing on his own. In response, Uwaz happily rubbed his muzzle against Leston's face. See, he really is gentle and sweet deep down. Now that we were all friends, I urged the two to get going. Could you call one of your friends to help us? Someone that you think would get along with Lady Nefertima and who even Dan could ride? At Leston's request, Uwaz let out a high-pitched neigh toward the herd. In response, one of the horses separated from the group and galloped toward us. Before the horse gets to us, I got a question. What do you mean about a horse that even Dan can ride? Sorry for not paying closer attention. I'm not very good with horses, Dan admitted. When I worked for the Beast Knights, my partner was a wild bear. He seemed a little embarrassed to admit it, but how can a knight possibly be afraid of horses? Where is a knight without his trusty steed? And of all things, a bear? Does he think that he's the main character from the Japanese legend of Kintaro or something? Don't tell me his weapon of choice is an axe, then he'd be an undeniable Kintaro copycat. Let me think. He told me he tried to use a halberd. That's practically an axe, isn't it? Actually, it's like like a long axe, like a javelin and an axe combined. I think. I tried to picture it, but I couldn't help but scoff at the image of such a Western-looking Kintaro. Dan had reddish-brown hair, a shade darker than mine, and pale green eyes. He reminded me of an especially muscular Italian hottie. The horse had made it to us in the time it took me to wade through all these thoughts. You know what? Forget about it. I'm done with this train of thought. Goodbye. The horse that Uwaz had called for us had a beautiful all-white coat. He's absolutely gorgeous, but more than anything, I wish I could see my brother ride him. If he rode this horse, he'd look just like the stereotypical blonde-haired, blue-eyed Prince Charming on a white horse. He would. Oh! Yes, he would! Yes, he would! He was so cool! This horse's name is Hugh. He's very docile and will go in the right direction even without orders from his rider, so he's the perfect mount for you, Dan. Whoa, this horse runs on autopilot, and don't think I missed that casual sarcasm. It looks like Leston might have an unexpectedly dark side to his character. In any case, we quickly saddled the two horses, and at long last were on our way. We left the herd of war horses behind and raced across the grassy plain. Horseback riding is really bouncy. What will I do if I pull a muscle in my butt? Ouch, butt cramp. That has to hurt. Or that would hurt. While I was pondering this, we spotted our first target, a herd of cows? Yeah, one of those species is definitely some kind of cow. Based on the horns, I think they might be water buffaloes, but what is the other species? What's that, I asked. The smaller ones are land bulls. They're a type of cow that only exists on this continent. The larger ones are hornheads. They have violent temperaments, so they are suited for war. Land bulls were used like pack mules to carry things. They had mild temperaments and were easy to take care of, so farming villages also used them to plow the fields. So I was right, they are just like water buffaloes. The hornheads had unique horns. They were shaped like the letter T and decorated with horizontal lines that looked engraved. But the markings might have also been naturally occurring indications of growth because the same material that their horns were made of also covered their faces from the base of the horns down to their upper lip, with holes on both sides for their eyes, ears, and nostrils. Including their horns, the horn heads were about 10 feet long. Not including their horns, they were roughly the same size as Lars. I want to get a closer look. Okay, but make sure not to startle them, got it? Huh, I've got this all figured out. I just need to call them to me, then I'll be able to touch them. The land bulls all had kind eyes. Kind and strong, no wonder they're so popular. Perhaps due to the quality of their feed, their coats were glossy and looked like a thick, soft blanket. I was admiring the luster of the land bulls' coats when one came over to me and licked my face. Slobber attack! Yeah, there's so much spit my face is covered. Leston took pity on me and wiped my face with his handkerchief. Seeing me sulking, the cow who licked me let out a moo. Who was that? You licked me as a sign of affection. In that case, I suppose I'll accept it. It seemed that I caught the hornhead's attention while I was playing with the land bull because they also gathered around us. Oh my, what a lovely coat you have, sir. I buried my entire face in one of the hornhead's hair. It doesn't smell bad. He smells like hay or a freshly cut field, and his hair feels so nice. It's like a ball of yarn. Oh, but not wool yarn, more like acrylic. I want to touch his horns too, but I can't reach them. Am I to be left hanging there after coming this far? I could try and get the hornhead to kneel, but given their weight, I thought that might be quite a burden on their knees. Now I'm in a pickle. As if he understood my predicament, the hornhead lowered his head. Oh right, cows eat grass, so of course their necks are long enough to reach all the way down to the ground. Duh! At this distance, I could see the horizontal lines, which I thought might have been engraved pattern, were just growth lines. The horns themselves were smooth. The horn's texture reminds me of something I've touched before. What is it? Oh man, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember. I keep petting until I remember. Pet. Nope, not yet. Pet. I've got it! His horns feel like the trunk of a crepe myrtle tree. Whew, what a relief. The cow I've been petting bellowed out a deep-pitched roar. Huh? Look out! Taken off guard by the flippant temperament, I froze in front of the now aggressive hornhead. I think because you stopped. As the horn bull reared back on its hind legs, I was snatched and thrown backward into the air. Whoa! For a moment, I was sure the horns would skewer me, but somehow I landed safely in Dan's arms. I watched wide-eyed with shock as the horn bull I'd been petting turned and charged toward another hornhead. Crash. A sound like two trees colliding into one another rang through the air as they locked horns. That's why I told you not to get them too riled up. I didn't get them riled up. What does he mean? Leston responded with incredulity to the baffled look on my face. You didn't know, did you? Hornheads get excited if you touch their horns. Apparently, rubbing horns with their partner is part of their mating behavior, and when they get too excited or want to settle a challenge with another hornhead, they'll charge at each other and clash horns, as you just saw. Theirs is a power-based society for both the males and females. Ah. So kind of like how deer do when they're during mating season. They kind of battle other males to get the female's attention or something. What an unusual way of life. There are many species where the males get competitive, but for the females to be the same is pretty amazing. Okay, I get the hornheads, but... Leston, you threw me! Leston was the criminal who picked me up and chucked me. Sorry for being so violent. If I hadn't made it in time, you would have been trampled. It's hard to believe you're sorry when you say it with a smile like that. Are you a scoundrel after all? I'm starting to believe you're the villain in this story. Seeing me pouting, Hugh rubbed his muzzle against my cheek. Are you trying to comfort me? You really are a prince's white steed, aren't you? I'm usually the aggressor in cuddling and petting, but I don't mind switching roles sometimes. Once the noble steed Hugh calmed me down, we set off in search of our next target. We waved goodbye to the land bulls and hornheads before we left. In response, we were serenaded with a cacophony of moos. At least 3 of the cows parting greetings overlapped at any one time, creating tremendous noise. But I was cheered by the sense that they seemed to be saying they wanted us to visit again sometime. Next time I'll come up with a plan so I can touch the hornhead's horns again, safely this time. I can really get addicted to the sensation of their smooth horns. We let our horses plod along at a leisurely gait for a short while until we located our next target. 2 rhinoceroses were hanging out eating grass. It looked almost identical to the rhinoceroses in my world, except their horns were a little bigger. It's a wino! They're skittish and fearful creatures, so let's just observe them from afar. Thunk. Arrow to the heart. I'm not allowed to pet them. In that case, I'll call them over. No, I mean I'll leave them alone. Commander Leston's eyes are incredibly frightening right now. There's a good girl. Instead, why don't I tell you a story that involves rhinoceroses, Lady Nefertima? In this world, rhinoceroses were called living legends. Since a rhinoceros's horn could be processed in various ways and used to make a cure-all medicine, weapons, or even decorative items, it was very valuable. Hunters targeted them, hoping to catch one and get rich quickly. However, although there were many sightings and reported encounters, there had only been 3 cases of successful rhinoceros captures or kills in the past few decades. The theory was this was partially due to the rhinoceros' cowardly natures and tendency to flee whenever anyone approached, but also because their natural habitat was in the dwelling of elemental spirits, a place where magic didn't work. But by the way, I was told that the rhinoceroses living in the beast stables were all born and raised here. I asked if they were all parents, children, or siblings, but that wasn't the case. How can that be? The first king of this country's beast mount was a rhinoceros. While on a campaign, the king's mount mated with a wild female rhinoceros. Through trial and error, he slowly increased the size of the herd by breeding the children of these 2. At this stage, the herd consisted only of parents, children, and siblings, but the king noticed that either because the rhinoceroses somehow knew that their bloodline was becoming too concentrated, or because they had all been raised together, they began to refuse to mate, so that he had to come up with another method. It was a slightly unusual method. Only when someone related to the royal palace was bonded with the holy beast would rhinoceroses in their mating phase be released into the dwelling of elemental spirits. No magic could be used in the dwelling of elemental spirits, so they could get the holy beast to ask the elemental spirits to watch over the rhinoceros while it was there. The rhinoceros would be able to mate, and when the signs of pregnancy appeared, the rhinoceros would be taken back to the herd. Since this breeding strategy was adopted, the rhinoceroses have unfailingly gone along with the plan and reproduced. Only the past few years, the number of baby rhinoceroses has increased thanks to Lars' assistance. Is it really okay to use a holy beast like this? I wouldn't be opposed to gathering them all together to form a petting zoo, though. No, bad self, enough of those kinds of thoughts. But anyway, what kind of king rides into battle on a rhino? The first king of this country must have been a very unusual person. I was reluctant to leave without petting the rhinoceroses, but we moved on in search of other animals. Is that Lord Okoto? Oh, no, of course not. Silly me, it does look like the boar god from a certain copyrighted anime digging into the ground over there. Though, why is it digging a hole anyway? Is it trying to make a booby trap? What's she doing? The shock of seeing the boar dig what looked like a drop pit made my pronunciation extra shaky. Oh, a giant boar. She's probably looking for food. No, that doesn't answer my question at all. Try again. That's how they search for bugs to eat, by digging in the dirt. That's much better. Thank you, Dan. However, that's quite the dining experience. Oh, but she's in the middle of eating, huh? I probably shouldn't bother her while she's eating. While I debated what to do, the boar noticed us and started oinking. Oh, wow, she makes the same noise as a pig. The pitch is deeper because she's so big, but the sound is the same. Oh no, looks like we've been caught, Leston muttered Riley. Is it a bad thing that the boar noticed us? The giant boar gave no indication of moving. She stood there staring at us. Suddenly, something leaped out from behind her and charged at us. Through the thundering of racing footsteps, I finally made out the image of... Are those wild boar piglets? Their eyes were bloodshot, their faces looked wild, and they were each about the size of an adult farm pig, but there was no doubt about it. They were definitely wild boar piglets. Wait, stop! I shouted in my mind. The wild boar piglets attempted to stop, but due to the law of inertia, they slid forward for a short distance. What are you guys, that you can act out a scene that seems like it would only ever occur in a manga? There were 5 enormous wild boar piglets. If they slid into me, I'd be a goner. Well, if it were a manga, I'd probably dive comically through the air, or fly comically through the air, but somehow survive unharmed. Oink, 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 oink. The wild boar piglets cried, begging me to play with them. Aww. You crowded around so close that I can't even move, never mind play. And it wasn't just me. Dan and Leston were facing the same predicament. Help me! Excuse me, Mama Pig! The piglets eagerly wagging tails whipped me, and they were staining my dress with their muddy, wet noses. Their bristly hair tickled my cheeks, and was in no state to cuddle or pet any of them. The wild boar piglets pressed in around me, leaving me gasping to breathe when a powerful neigh trumpeted through the air. The startled wild boar piglets fled with as much energy as when they arrived, back toward where their mother waited a short distance away. What was that? Thanks, Uwaz, you saved the day, Leston praised. Oh, I see, Uwaz came to our rescue. Hugh approached me, concerned as well. Yikes, that was intense. Those wild boar piglets swept in here like a typhoon. How unlucky for us that they found us. Adolescent wild boars are extremely curious because they know humans will play with them. Once they spot a human, they won't stop until they get their way. There are many cases of beast knights suffering grievous injuries due to this every year. What a wild place to work, where you probably get injured playing with the animals. In any case, Leston cleaned my dress with magic, and we moved to an area of higher ground a short distance away to take a break. While resting, we filled our bellies with sandwiches for the cook from the Beast Knight's cafeteria packed for us. In this world, they called any food that consisted of bread with some kind of filling inside a polis. Sandwiches and hot dogs were both types of polis. These polis came in several varieties. Some were stuffed with spiced chicken and mashed potatoes, others with cheese and fresh vegetables, and one type even contained seasonal fruits. I was happy some sandwiches were cut into bite-sized pieces for me. I'll have to thank the cook when we get back. I'm grateful for how considerate they were in making these sandwiches even easy for me to eat. Alright, we're full and have recouped our energy. Let's find more animals. Okay, I'm going to have to stop, and I'll see you guys in the next one.